Today, we're looking at a green ink by KWZ, Green Gold. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. It really does help out this channel. If you don't know me, hi, I'm an ink guy, and if you do know me, then let me know down in the description what was the first video that you saw on this channel. To keep the writing samples somewhat consistent, the first three are done with Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia dot pad. Let's take a look at that first one, Clairfontaine 90 GSM. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading. Look at the KWZ. Starts darker on the K, becomes much lighter on the Z. The extra fine is about the same tones as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading. Look at brown, starting dark, works its way light, and then up to a nice mid-tone. Fox goes from darker to lighter to darker. 15 seconds to dry. Now, medium is the same tones as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some great shading going on here. Look at quick with dark to light to dark, beautiful. 20 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both far left to far right don't show a ton of color variation, much more in the writing. And the smear test, I believe you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are always done with this Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, this Jinhao X450 with a medium, and this Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor 1911 large with a zoom nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM, Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It is giving some shading. You see it in the K of KWZ where it starts lighter and gets darker. You see the gold starts a little lighter and then gets darker. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, minor shading coming through. You look at lazy, starts dark, gets a little lighter. You see it in quick where it goes darker to lighter to darker, 22 seconds to dry. The medium is dark like the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, only some moments of shading. Like over has a little bit in the beginning where it gets a little lighter and then darker again, but only a few moments here where it shows some of its lighter tones. 30 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both don't show a lot of color variation, and we're really not getting a ton in the writing. The smear test says you could probably not recover anything if you smeared it while you were writing, much more a feature of this paper. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. There's a line of ink down, and then it's immediately put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And as it pushes up, you see that there's a bit of yellow mixed in with this green to really try and give it some more of that color variation. And I don't think that's just the green gathered at the top. I think there's a little bit of a much darker green there that just moves from the water faster. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked into water, and while it didn't travel as far, it basically looks the same, which makes me feel like there's not going to be a lot of resistance for this ink. The last standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, only a few darker spots like the E's in the green. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, much better shading. You see the starts light and gets dark, quick starts light and gets dark, brown starts dark, gets light at the W, and dark again at the N. It's very nice here, 17 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 23 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine left to right shows some good color variation, and we got that. The medium shows none, and we had none. But the smear test says you could likely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, that lowercase h that's blown out would make me not want to use this in a note-taking situation if I had to go back and highlight. I'm just risk averse. Now, water you do see is reactivating and pulling it up off the paper. With only 30 seconds, it's removing a majority of the ink, and it would probably, given more time, remove even more. Pen Flush does everything that water does, but nothing more, meaning you're not really going to need to use Pen Flush to get this out of your pen, and it only took water from me. Now, the 1/3 bleach solution that you're not going to need did completely obliterate it off the paper. For the additional writing samples, the paper's changed up as frequently as possible in order to really expand the experience with papers. The next one we're going to look at is Life paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade. Look at KWZ, starts darker and is working its way lighter. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some decent shading. You look at quick, starts a little darker, gets a little lighter, little darker at the I, little lighter at the C, and darker at the K. Very nice. 14 seconds to dry. Medium is the darkest tone on the page, with no feather spread, halo sheen, but that dark tone did not eat up all of the shading. Look at over, starts light and gets dark. The starts light and gets dark. Quick starts dark, gets a little lighter, and then gets very dark at the K. 20 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both don't show a ton of color variation, although there's plenty in the writing. And a smear test, I don't think you'd have any trouble recovering it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. KWZ's Green Gold has a viscosity of 2.24, making it normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested and how the bell curve is made, then there's a link down in the description to that video. The next writing sample is done on Apica CD notebook paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, still that same nice shading that we've seen so frequently. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. I think the shading shows up a bit nicer here. Brown starts as a nice mid-tone and gets lighter, and Fox starts light and works dark. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is the darkest tone on the page with no feather spread, halo sheen, not much for shading. It is there, like over starts a little lighter and gets darker. Look at the number 8 in how the middle of the 8 is darker than the very bottom or the very top. 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows good color variation far left to far right, and we got that. The medium doesn't show a ton, but the medium writing didn't have a ton. The smear tests for both show that you could probably recover this if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. KWZ's Green Gold had an average dry time of 21 seconds, putting it right on the edge of normal, but still normal. The last writing sample is done on Franklin Christoph paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is by far the darkest tone on the page, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't show a lot of color variation, and we're not getting it in the writing, but the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like KWZ's Green Gold, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice brown ink by Blackstone, Brown Boronia. If you'd prefer a different color for the complement, take a look down in the description where you're going to see a link to a bunch of different color playlists. So what do I think of KWZ's Green Gold? This does give some interesting shading from time to time. I'm finding it especially fun with this zoom nib. There is a lot of color variation depending on the pen you choose. Like, look at how dark this tends to be. There's tons of color variation from this ink. So what nib and pen would give the best writing experience with this ink? While I do enjoy the colors that come from a very wet, broad I do think this is much a dealer's choice because a medium flow, medium or fine nib still look especially good and show a lot of character with this ink. I hope you got something out of this video, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we take a look at Rhodia & Cleaner's Iron Gall Salix.